infrastructure. Largely on Bitcoin, based on the sidechains white paper. And our CEO is Dr. Adam Back. He was mentioned in the white paper from Satoshi Nakamoto, Grant Spam. It is also a fork of Bitcoin. So we do a lot of open source contributions at Blockstream. We have one developer full-time working on Bitcoin Core. We have Explora, which is a block explorer for Bitcoin and Liquid. And Lightning, I'll talk about that in my talk as well. Simplicity, it's a smart contracting language. And Miniscript, which is a simpler, let's talk about Bitcoin. I think everyone in the room knows about Bitcoin. A lot of people don't know that Bitcoin does support smart contracting because it's not marketed and Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing team behind it. But actually Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency that has smart contracts. And also Bitcoin is actually, I wouldn't say it's a DLT. Bitcoin is just Bitcoin. And then there are other blockchain projects which are DLTs. Bitcoin is in a league on its own. It's an uncensorable digital gold. Other cryptocurrencies go up and when it goes down, they follow. But typically, Bitcoin is moving on its own. It's also decentralized, so anybody can participate in the Bitcoin network without having to talk to a central authority. You can mine Bitcoin without having to join any consortium, and you can transact Bitcoin without reliance on any third party. It's also battle tested. It's been in operation for 10 years now, and it's secured by 86 exahash of proof of work, and maybe the power used to power a small country. So it's very secure and reliable. And it's also very lightweight, which means if you have a small laptop computer or old computer, you can also always run a Bitcoin core node and help to secure the network. So some of the new tech that's coming out in Bitcoin includes Schnorr signatures, Taproot and Graphroot, scriptless scripts, and Miniscript. But these are mainly optimizations of signature technology, and a lot of them are advancements to help with scaling. So Schnorr signatures replaces ECBSA, which lets us do signature aggregations, which generate smaller transactions. You can batch your signatures together. And we have Taproot and Graphroot, which improve privacy of smart contracts in Bitcoin. And scriptless script is mainly a way to do smart contracts and enable cross-chain atomic swaps. And Miniscript will talk about it a bit later. Another interesting thing that has seen a lot of traction lately is the Lightning Network. So this is a layer 2 scaling solution for Bitcoin, which allows for instantaneous and near-free transactions. So it allows Bitcoin to become a payments network. So a lot of people were using Bitcoin in the early days to do payments, but Bitcoin is not a payments layer. But Lightning allows Bitcoin to be used for payments. So you can use Bitcoin now to pay for things in a store, pay for your coffee, or pay for micro or nano transactions, machine-to-machine transactions. So Blockstream has one of the main Lightning implementations. Our implementation is called C Lightning, and that's primarily led by Russ Russell and Christian Decker from our team. And we've had a lot of growth of Lightning over the years. So we've seen parabolic growth since we launched on mainnet in early 2018. So Lightning is decentralized, so there is no real timeline for when things happen. Like there's no official launch date. But in early 2018, all the three main Lightning implementations, C Lightning, LND, and Eclair went beta. So we called that launch. But we've seen a lot of growth. This is the channels of the network. So number of open channels is the yellow line on the graph, and then capacity for Bitcoin is the green graph. And you see it tapering off a little bit here, but that actually doesn't mean that the network growth is slowing, because recently we have an advancement for private channels or unannounced channels. So people can take advantage of that privacy functionality to not broadcast their channels to the network. So we see fewer channels publicly advertised. And the number of Bitcoin pegged into the network is actually dropping. But remember that Bitcoin price is going up over time. So the total capacity of the network has actually more than doubled in this time period. So some of the other advancements in Lightning include external channel funding, dual funded channels, which allow for two parties to both fund a single Lightning channel. So before this, you'd have to open a channel and it's lopsided, it's your own funding. But now you can have two parties, so you can both contribute funds to a single channel. and we have improved privacy and plugins. So plugins is a major addition to C Lightning, which allows you to create your own plugin in any language and run it with C Lightning. So Liquid is a primary point of my talk today. So Liquid is a interchain settlement network. It is a sidechain, but it's the first commercial production sidechain anchored to Bitcoin. So what it allows for is rapid Bitcoin transactions. So when Bitcoin sees congestion, and it can see congestion for a multitude of reasons, such as increased usage, trading, or just people spamming the Bitcoin network, anchoring data, or anchoring anything with open timestamps or timestamping data, it can slow down. But Liquid is a separate chain, and it is a single-purpose chain, so it is for financial transactions only, which helps it in terms of being more scalable. So some of the advantages are fast final settlement. So we can have full settlement in Liquid in roughly 2.5 minutes. Liquid has 1 minute block times, and depending on when your transaction hits the network, we recommend taking 2 transactions because we can actually have a 1 block reorg in Liquid. So roughly 2.5 minutes for full settlement. We have confidential transactions. So every transaction in Liquid is confidential, meaning you cannot see the amounts of the transaction. Issue assets on Liquid sidechain representing things like fiat stablecoins, other digital assets. And the biggest benefit for exchanges is one integration, many assets. So you just run one Liquid implementation and you can access all the different assets issued in Liquid, which means less overhead and development time for an exchange to support different tokens and assets. So how it works is you essentially need to lock up a Bitcoin on the Bitcoin main chain before you can unlock Bitcoin in Liquid. And what that means is there cannot be more Bitcoin in Liquid than exists in Bitcoin. So there are 21 million Bitcoin in Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain, and there will only be 21 potentially in the Liquid sidechain. So the ticker for Bitcoin is BTC, and we call Liquid Bitcoin L-BTC to represent it differently. So Bitcoin is pegged into Liquid through a two-way peg. We require 102 confirmations on the Bitcoin main chain, and this is just to avoid reorgs. So there can be deep reorgs on Bitcoin potentially. It's grown less probable now, but still, it still happens. So we ask for 102 confirmations just to be safe. But pegging out from Liquid back to Bitcoin only takes 2, and you have that finality. So when you peg in Bitcoin into Liquid, you actually take advantage of the properties of Liquid, which is faster block times and confidential assets. So how Liquid works is we have functionaries which are securing the network. So Bitcoin is secured by miners, but in Liquid we're secured by the functionaries which are running these functionary boxes, which is a 1U rack server that they put in their vaults. And these servers are extending the Liquid blockchain by generating blocks. And they're generated every minute. So one of the functionaries will close a block, and then if 2/3 of the federation sign the block, then that is a valid block, and the transactions are added to the Liquid sidechain. So for Liquid, we also have issued assets, which is very functionality. So with something like Bitcoin, you can actually have assets, kind of assets on coin, using things like colored coins. And on protocols like Ethereum, you can have a token, which is largely what Ethereum is used for, but you're using a complex JavaScript-like smart contract to create a token, which opens up all sorts of interesting attack surfaces. But for Liquid, every asset in the network is native to the chain. So if I issue a stablecoin on Liquid, it's at the same level of security as, say, Bitcoin. So I can take advantage of all the wallet software developed around Liquid, hardware wallets that support LBTC or Bitcoin, and secure my token that way. And we recently, in the last few months, announced that we have Tether now on Liquid. So that's the largest stablecoin currently, and they've issued on Liquid to take advantage of things like confidentiality. So this is roughly how the world interacts with the Liquid Federation. You connect to the network over a bridge node, and something like Blockchain Green, our wallet, will connect to a bridge node and access Liquid and broadcast and receive transactions. Or you might have a Liquid client or a third-party Liquid wallet. So For Bitcoin trading, there are currently a lot of problems, and I think Liquid addresses some of them. If you're doing OTC trading, you have to deal with counterparty risk. So OTCs usually require you send the money first, and then they'll fill your order and send it back to you, and that introduces counterparty risk. And there are middlemen too, so they'll take a cut on any transactions. And there is also the issue of slow settlement. So Bitcoin is a settlement network with roughly 10-minute block times, but it can be longer because there is variance in mining. So you typically want 6 confirmations on the Bitcoin main chain to consider a transaction settled. But with mining variance, you can have a block come out maybe in an hour. I've seen it go up to 3 hours, and sometimes it can be faster. But on average, it's about an hour for settlement, but it can be a lot more, which is frustrating, especially if the network is congested. And there is limited liquidity. So you're limited to trading partners that you have a relationship with. So if you're doing OTC trades, typically these are large dealers that have their user base, and they can dictate terms of the trade. So with Liquid, we can quickly move funds because we have faster block times than Bitcoin, but you're still transacting Bitcoin essentially, because you can always peg out through any of the Liquid members. And you have confidentiality. And you can also secure your funds off exchange. One common use case right now for trading, leaving coins on exchange, is that traders want to be able to trade it at a moment's notice, so they leave their coins on exchange, which increases risk for both sides. So the exchange has to deal with holding more coins than they otherwise would have wanted, and the users have to trust another party with their coins. But if they're using Liquid, they can move coins on and off exchange very rapidly. So they can move it off exchange to their own wallet, Blockchain Green or Harbor wallet, and they can move it back on in a minute. And it's reliable, so they know that they won't have to deal with the variance and 6 confirmations. So there are also new use cases with Liquid, which are atomic swaps. So these are single chain atomic swaps that you can do with other assets. So like say Liquid Tether and Liquid Bitcoin. So you can do OTC trades. Right now, a lot of the large OTCs will just require you to treat them as a trusted party and send your coins to them first. But with Liquid, you can actually do these atomic swaps. So you can trade with people you don't necessarily trust, because we can start a trade that executes when both sides sign. So that means you can do more peer-to-peer trades, and you can also have non-custodial exchanges emerge using Liquid. So this is just comparing different swap types. So in Liquid, they're faster, 2 minutes. Cross-chain swaps would be, say, between Litecoin and Bitcoin, and that's roughly now because you want to have 6 confirmations. And smart contract swaps would be, say, something in Ethereum, which also would require about an hour of confirmations. And those are just the different benefits. So Liquid is lower fees, less complexity, and more private. So this is just an example of how you do an atomic swap. It's just a swap that occurs simultaneously. So it only happens if both sides sign, and then it happens at the same time. So there's zero counterparty risk. So you can see the transaction structure is just, overall, an atomic swap is just a single transaction. So in this case, you have Alice wanting to, she has Liquid Tether, but she wants Liquid Bitcoin. So she'll propose a trade to Bob, who has Liquid Bitcoin and wants Liquid Tether. So I'll break down this transaction really quickly. So Alice will first construct her side of the transaction and say, I want Tether, I have Tether and Bitcoin, I want Bitcoin. And then she'll send that transaction to Bob, who fills in the other side of the trade on their agreed amounts. So Bob will say, okay, I'll give you some Bitcoin and I want this much Tether. And he'll also pay the fees because he has Bitcoin. And then he'll send that transaction back to Alice, who signs that transaction. And then in this case, Alice will broadcast that transaction on Liquid, and then the transaction is executed. So they didn't need to trust each other to create this transaction, and there is no counterparty risk. So another thing that we can do with Liquid is peer-to-peer derivatives. And we recently did a test with one of our partners and Liquid members, which is Crypto Garage. It's a Japanese company focused on crypto finance. So we constructed a trust-minimized forward contract. So that's just a bilateral agreement to buy or sell an asset at an agreed specific price in the future. So we collateralized on chain. I think we did 0.16 Bitcoin or something like that, when Bitcoin price was about 5,000. it's risk minimized because once you constructed the transaction, there's no way to cancel it. And we oracleized it as well by getting price data from the cryptocurrency data feed. So this is actually a product that we built in conjunction with ICE. ICE is the owner of the New York Stock Exchange and back. So we do the heavy lifting and they're marketing and selling this feed. But we took the price from this feed and used it to complete our transaction. So this is just breaking down what we did. I'm running out of time, so I'll skip ahead. We constructed the transaction, posted our collateral on chain. Blockstream went long, because we're long Bitcoin, of course, and Crypto Garage went short, and they ended up taking the trade, so they made about $230 on the trade. So I talked a bit earlier about Bitcoin and smart contracts, but we can actually do a lot more interesting smart contracts and better smart contracts now with things like Miniscript. So the Miniscript is a scripting language that's human readable, and it's meant to simplify Bitcoin script, which is based on another language called Forth, which is meant for telegraphic transfers. Or it's very old language, created in 1960 or something like that. But it's human readable. It makes Bitcoin script easier to use. So you basically create your smart contract with Miniscript, and it compiles down to Bitcoin script, and it makes it a lot less error prone, and you can check and see that your smart contract actually does what you think it. And it also has a reduced attack surface, because if you're constructing smart contracts with Bitcoin script, there are a lot of possible errors. If you see some transactions on Bitcoin where people reverse the fee, the miner fee, and the transaction and pay the miners 10 or hundreds of Bitcoin, that's an example of people messing up Bitcoin script. So Miniscript helps with that. We also have Simplicity, which is developed by researcher at Blokstream, Russell O'Connor. This is meant to be a full replacement of Bitcoin script, but it's a formally verifiable language which allows you to essentially verify that a smart contract does what you think it will do. And this solves a lot of problems with complexity in, say, Ethereum smart contracts, where they have no idea what the smart contract does, and you end up things with a DAO hack, which is very bad. And you have higher level languages that compile down into Simplicity. But Simplicity is very simple. We actually have a t-shirt available on our Blockstream store, which shows the language. It's the back of the t-shirt. So the entire language fits on the back of a single t-shirt. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to bring Bitcoin and Liquid to the mainstream. We have Liquid Securities, which is built on Liquid. It's a way to issue and manage tokenized securities. And you can set up compliance rules. And we have a few projects and companies that are currently being worked on, developed on Liquid Securities. This will launch in Q3 this year, so it's very exciting. We announced this at Consensus last year. Another thing is that we recently announced Lightning is now functional on Liquid. So what that means is you can construct a Lightning network on Liquid. That means LBTC can have its own Lightning network now, and that allows for swaps between Bitcoin Lightning network and Liquid Lightning. But the more interesting part about this is you can have a network on top of a Liquid asset. So as I mentioned, we have Tether on Liquid. And with Tether on Liquid, if you have enough liquidity, enough people holding Liquid Tether, you can construct a network on Tether. And what that means is you can now use a stablecoin to do retail payments. You can go to the store and pay for coffee with Tether. Access, say, for Wi-Fi, like very small transactions per second. And you can instant. So these are just some of the things that show the different roles of Liquid and Lightning. So I think Liquid and complementary technologies. Liquid is primarily used for trading, whereas Lightning would be used for more retail and small payment. Transaction fees, we still have transaction fees in Liquid because it's a DDoS measure. We want to charge for transactions so the network doesn't get scammed. And you can kind of go through. I want to leave some time open for questions. So it supports Liquid assets, so you can issue a token in Liquid, and it can be accessed by your ledger. And it's available for Android and iOS. But the interesting thing about Blockstream Green is that it is a multi-sig wallet, and that means that Blockstream holds one key, you hold one key, so you use second factor authentication to approve a transaction. So that makes holding issued assets on Liquid much more safe and reliable for your end users. That's just a UI showing different issued assets on blockchain green and how they appear. But Liquid is the base currency of the Liquid sidechain. So when you're transacting an asset, you're actually using UC to move it. So this is the diagram showing the systems. We have Liquid as layer 2. They're available. So everything is sourced up there. For SDK, things mobile applications. And Explorers, we have an asset register assets issued on Liquid. The Garage, it's meant to be a platform that lets people do trust minimized swaps on Liquid. So one thing that's changed recently is we're repositioning Liquid to be layer 1.5 because we can now have Lightning networks set up on top of Liquid assets. So whereas previously we would say Liquid is layer 2, Lightning is layer 2, we're going to move Liquid down a bit to better represent how it interacts with Lightning and Bitcoin. So it sits between the two. And I think you could safely say that Liquid is kind of an interface to make things like digital assets or crypto assets compatible with Bitcoin. So these are some of our Liquid members. Two of our Liquid members are actually Korean exchanges. We have GoPax and One, but we have a lot of members in the network from different segments of cryptocurrency industry, like exchanges, trading desk and brokerage, infrastructure, and wallets. So Liquid in the industry, these are some breakdown of the different member types we have. So for a wallet, we have Blockstream Green. OpenNode is a payment processor, so they're also a Liquid member. Exchanges, we have Bitfinex, BitMEX, OKCoin will be in several other large cryptocurrency exchanges. And then for custody, we have Zappo as a member. And for token issuance, TokenSoft can help with issuing security tokens on Liquid. And we have one mining pool in the network as well, which is pooling. So their use case is that they're going to allow payments for their miners to happen over Liquid networks, so they can send directly to an exchange. And this is just an example of asset issuance and how different other chains handle different asset types. So you can read the chart, need more time, but we handle everything, and we think it's more private than any other chain. So that summarizes my talk. Largely, it's to show you guys what is being built on Bitcoin and Liquid. And the exciting part is really Lightning networks and being able to do retail payments for crypto assets. And I leave you with our slogan, don't trust, verify. Thank you very much.